out now. Yeah.
You just want to go this way, or?
Sure.
Yeah, do you want to just do one and then go back?
I have about like 8 questions.
I have a lot of questions, so
Okay.
you want to just kind of
And then,
rattle on?
like, if he asks the question you want to ask, or we don't have to go over it again, do we?
No.
Okay, sounds good. Okay.
And we can go one. Do we
Yeah.
do everybody's questions, or
Yeah.
do we just do
One.
Why don't you go?
maybe a couple questions, then move on, and
Okay,
then come
let's do that.
back?
Let's do that. Okay. You good? Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah, I'm ready. So, Sheriff, could you tell us about the efforts to find the missing people and how many you estimate there are now?
So our effort to locate casualties from this fire is ongoing. As I talked last night, we brought in an additional coroner's team. I was out in the field just before I got here and met with a group of them. So we've deployed them out, and we're looking in areas where we have received reports that there may be a fatality in that location. We're also looking in other areas where there's a lot of destruction based on the fire, and assess those areas, do initial assessment. I'm going to tell you it's very, very hard. One of the things that I saw when I was up there is that there is so much debris in some of these areas that it's very difficult to determine whether or not there might be human remains there. The other thing is that in some cases the fire burned so intensely that it burned everything to the ground. In some cases melted the metal, and in those cases it is possible the temperature high enough to completely consume the body. So that gives you an understanding of how difficult this task ultimately is.
Is there any way, I saw CNN said there was about 110 people missing. Do you know if that number is right?
So that was a number that we had last night. I don't have updated numbers. My staff is working on it, and later on when we have our 6 p.m. Actual briefing, I'll have better numbers at that. I know that I have another team of people who are working to resolve those cases. They're working to identify or determine whether or not we can find those people and ultimately put them back into contact with the people who reported them missing in the first place.
Okay. And is there like a list of names or something?
So we're still compiling that. This is a dynamic situation, and what we're finding is that in some cases there was duplicate names, so we're having to go through and figure that out. And then in some cases we weren't actually provided enough information to determine exactly what we're talking about. And the example might be, my friend John lived up there in Paradise, and I haven't seen him. It's hard for us to ultimately deal with that scenario because of the limited amount of information. Okay,
Thank you.
good. And
I came in late. Was there any other new numbers?
no,
Okay.
there wasn't. But if you want to ask questions, you have to go over here because I'm going this way.
like this
All right,
idea.
good. Go ahead.
Thank you, Sheriff. So can you talk about price gouging right now? Has the Sheriff's Office heard any reports of that?
Thank you. That's a great question. I really appreciate that. And so I did receive the first thing I heard was there was a rumor that someone was being charged $7 per gallon of gas. Although the information that came to me didn't have any information about where that was happening, so there wasn't much we could do that. I also received some information that hotels were charging much higher rates. I actually, because our resources are so committed to the evacuation and the security and the coroner's function, I actually contacted our district attorney, Mike Ramsey. I asked him to take on that task. Last night, he deployed investigators out from the district attorney's office to look into those allegations. And so as we get information, if there is some information that price gouging is going on, which folks, it's completely inappropriate behavior. You cannot take advantage of people who are in this position. If we get that information, that will be referred over to our district attorney's office. District Attorney Ramsey will investigate it and then ultimately determine whether or not prosecution is necessary.
Okay, thank you, Sheriff. And my next question is on looting. Can you update us on any sort of reports on looting?
So I don't have an updated number. I'll have that prepared or ready when we have our 6 o'clock.
Okay.
Okay.
And next question is, do you have any idea on when anyone can go back who has been ordered to evacuate?
So first off, I want to say I absolutely feel for people who've been displaced from their homes, and I understand how upsetting that is, how frustrating that is, and I can also tell you that all of us, the fire side of this as well as the law enforcement side, are committed to getting people back into the area, back into their homes as soon as we possibly can. When I talk about that, I'm talking about the need for them to be safe when they go back in. And you have to remember, we are still involved in an active incident. We still have active fire. And when I have gone through those areas, there are areas where fire is still, there's spot fires here and there. There are down tree lines, there's down power lines. There are areas that I couldn't get to because we couldn't navigate around them safely. And so that all has to be resolved. The problem we have here is the magnitude that we're dealing with. And as I understand it, this is the most destructive fire in the history of California. We have entire communities that have been decimated. And as a result of that, it is going to take time for us to get in there and do that. We're sensitive to that. There's always this pressure to try to get people back into their homes, but we have to be assured that before we do that, we can do it safely so no one else gets hurt. And the other issue that I've got is I still have active fire, and I want to make sure that we don't repopulate an area that might have to then come back and be evacuated.
So just to reiterate, at this time, you don't have any plans to repopulate any sort of parts that have been ordered to evacuate?
We don't. I mean, we're certainly talking that, we're always looking at, but I cannot give an estimate because there are too many unknowns, too many variables, and right now it's just too dangerous.
Okay, and another viewer was asking us, is there still any threat to Chico? Any updates on that?
So that is a great question, and the answer is this is a dynamic situation. And so as I sit here right now, I don't believe that there is any threat to Chico. But you understand that we're dealing with a fire that hasn't yet been fully contained, and we're expecting high wind to continue over the next couple of days. And so ultimately, because of that, this is a dynamic and ever-changing situation, which is why I want people to continually be aware of what's going on, watch what's going on, be prepared to evacuate if you get a warning, and if there's an order, we would ask that you ultimately do that. And so I don't want to cause people panic. I don't want them to be nervous. I want them to be vigilant. I want them to be prepared. But on the other hand, I don't want to just declare there's no threat, because my fear is that people will then say, I don't have anything to worry about, and they'll stop paying attention to what's going on.
Okay, thank you for answering that.
You bet.
And the AP reported that there's a woman, Ellen Walker, who died in Concow due to the campfire. Would you be able to offer any other details on that, at least confirming that that's the case?
I cannot confirm that. We have not yet officially identified anybody or notified the next of kin. I'm not sure how they've made that determination. It's regrettable, actually, a little unfortunate that they would announce the name without it coming out of my office officially, because there is a process that we go through. We do it to protect loved ones, and we protect it. We want to make sure that we've identified somebody correctly and that we've notified the next of kin. So it's disheartening that was done, if in fact it was.
Okay, thank you for answering that. My last question for you is if you could explain how is Berry Creek looking right now in regards to the campfire? So
that was the area that we were worried about last night, and I'll make my comments, but ultimately my expertise is in the law enforcement side of it. That's a question probably best towards fire. But what the report that I received last night is that the wind that we were expecting to cause problems with the fire wasn't as severe, or didn't drive the fire in the way that we had feared. And so that as it stands right now, I understand that things are relatively in good shape. But that can change any moment, and that's why it's important for us to keep that in mind. Okay?
Thank you so much, Sheriff. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Go ahead.
And I missed a little bit at the beginning, so I can stay after if it's inappropriate and no one wants to.
No, that's okay.
Begin,
No.
but I'd like to know more about the missing and the deceased. So first the missing.
Well, what would you like to know?
Do we have any numbers, and what are the efforts going into helping this?
Okay, so I'll have updated numbers during our 6 o'clock briefing, but we have a team of investigators who are fielding calls from friends and family who want to report their loved ones or friends missing. We are working to compile lists and then cross-check those lists against the information we have from shelters. We're also looking at other sources of information to try to determine whether or not the person is in fact missing or just hasn't had an opportunity to reconnect with people. And in those cases, we've actually had some good success, and I'll have the numbers later tonight in terms of being able to resolve some of those issues. But if we get to the point where we can't resolve it, obviously, then we start looking at whether or not the person perhaps perished in the fire.
Okay, and as of last night, we were at 23 fatalities. Is there any update on that? And do we know the causes of all of them?
Okay, so those updates will come at my 6 o'clock. I wait until the day is through because if I update as time goes on, then I think it becomes confusing. So I'm going to update those at 6 o'clock. And at this point, the cause is not yet determined because we haven't had an opportunity to complete all of the examinations and autopsies that will need to be done.
Okay. And what is the sheriff's office going to be focusing on today?
So we are continue to focus on our mission of being prepared to evacuate areas that may be threatened by fire. Secondly, protecting those areas once they've been evacuated, security and protecting them from looters and things of that nature. Third, of course, just our general law enforcement mission that might need to be played out as a result of this. The fourth, of course, is our ongoing effort to resolve missing persons reports, and then finally, our ongoing effort to identify and locate deceased individuals and make recoveries of those remains.
Okay. And last night there was a bit of a flare-up going on with the fire, and like we were talking about Berry Creek and stuff. Was there a lot of calls coming in, or did it seem like people were more prepared?
I won't comment on the flare-up because that's the fires. They're the experts on that. I checked. I did get home late last night, but I think I woke up. But my last contact was about 1:30. Then I called Ben about 3, and then again at 6. The call volume was high but steady, but not significantly more than it was. So overall, given the circumstance we're dealing with, it seemed like it was it went fairly well last night.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
So yesterday you announced that the DOJ was bringing down their DNA lab.
Yes.
How is this going to work?
Okay, that's a great question, and that is we are in the process today of putting together a plan for that. One of the things that I tasked our folks with was to develop a plan, and so I'm hopeful that that plan will be developed, and we'll be able to announce it tonight at our press briefing. If not, we'll find another mechanism to get that information out. So I'm not yet ready to.
Are they here? Did they make it here?
Yeah, and I actually spoke to the DOJ employee who does that, and she is part of the process of planning how we're going to get this out and utilize it within the community.
Great. And then another question was, so you said 52,000 people have been evacuated yesterday?
I don't think I said that, but perhaps somebody said that, exactly.
Anyways, there are tens of thousands of
There
people
are.
who are
Correct.
evacuated.
Yeah.
So for those residents whose homes have been burned, is FEMA going to bring in temporary housing?
So that's a great question, and I think I should refer to FEMA on that. I will tell you that FEMA yesterday, the day before, my days are starting to run together, so forgive me on that. The day before that, FEMA was in the area. I actually had the opportunity to take FEMA representatives up into the affected area so that they could get a sense of what was going on. They noted the devastation. They were amazed is not the right word, but just awestruck by the devastation. Yesterday, the Director of Governor's Office of Emergency Services, Butte, along with the Commissioner of the Highway Patrol, the Adjutant General of the National Guard, and Director of CAL FIRE, all came to town. Along with FEMA, we had a meeting with local elected officials and talked about what that recovery process looks like. I anticipate that there will be a substantial involvement from FEMA as well as state resources to start helping people with those kinds of things. But I'm not an expert in that particular aspect of it, and so I'd leave that to FEMA.
Okay, and so, available housing around town is nowhere near sufficient for all the people.
I agree.
Do you think they should go home or leave or stay?
So that is such a hard question to answer because there are a lot of unknowns right now. I know that, and again, this is a little outside of the sheriff's, purview. I think that's an individual decision that they're going to have to make. I mean, at the end of the day, people are going to have to make some tough decisions about what they're going to fall through. Obviously, I have a lot of love for this community, and I want our residents to have a place to live here. We've got a long road ahead of us in terms of rebuilding. Okay.
One more. What is your response to the community's concern that they're not receiving enough information about Magalia, Concow, or Berry Creek? That was the biggest theme last night at the community meeting.
Yeah, no, so I appreciate that, and I understand how sometimes the information seems like it's all wrapped up and all focused in one area, although a lot of the information that we're providing out is relative to those areas as well. We're going to try to do a better job in terms of parsing those particular communities out and give that information. Here's the response. I think that first off, I know in every time we have a situation, in every one of these situations, communication is always difficult, and we work hard to try to mitigate that. But you understand the magnitude of this particular situation, and so where I'm at is committed to try to be better and better every day in terms of getting information out, recognizing that we're never going to be perfect about it. But honestly, one of the reasons when someone called and asked if I would do kind of a midday, interview, part of my effort to get information out is trying to make myself as available to the media as possible, but still do my job and be focused on what's going on and making sure things are going on.
Definitely. What areas are in immediate danger right now?
I'm gonna leave that to those areas that we have ordered evacuations, and I think I'll leave that. That's a better question for CAL FIRE. Yeah.
Okay. Is Oroville still being threatened?
So last night, remember we talked about that. We talked about that, and there was, I think the way that was ultimately, there was no immediate threat to Oroville.
Great.
But it goes back to that question that I mentioned earlier ago. That I think the reason that ultimately that was stated originally in terms of being a potential threat to it is because this is a dynamic, ever-changing situation, and that wind event that we dealt with last night had everybody concerned. I don't believe that there was a significant concern about Oroville, and so that's why we tried to clarify that statement in our 6 o'clock briefing so that people could have a better sense of that. I come back to this, and this is all when anybody says, is this particular area in threat right now? Well, again, I want you to pay attention. I want you to be prepared. If there is a need to evacuate, I want you to listen to it. And I don't want there to be, overwhelming fear about one thing or another, but we need to be vigilant. Is that fair?
Yes.
Okay, sounds good. Sir.
Right now, the number of missing is about 10, but that'll be updated tonight at 6.
Yeah, I don't have current numbers. My staff.
But I think that was the 6 p.m. briefing last night.
I believe so. Yeah.
Any children that are missing?
I don't know the answer to that question.
Okay. The other thing is, so we've got 23 fatalities so far. Any feel for maybe another 20 out there? There could be another.
And I appreciate the question, and I understand the desire. But,
yeah, I know it's
but I will not speculate. I will not hazard a guess. I've told people that I think that that there is the potential for more than what we have right now, but I'm not going to put a number on it because I don't think that's appropriate. I would rather give you information based on the facts that I have, or at least the facts that are available to me at that time. And so I'm not going to make a hazard a guess.
But I think you said earlier we went to the areas where there was the most devastation. We searched there, and then we went to the areas where we got reports of I haven't seen my mom, my dad. So it sounds like you hit the areas like high probability probability?
Well, we are working through that.
Understood, but
yeah.
is that a fair assessment? Or?
Yeah. We're trying to maximize our
Sure.
resources, or utilize our resources in the best possible way. So you look in areas where there is the higher possibility.
The other thing is, I think you said last night that 30 of your department's employees, sworn in civilian, have lost their homes, roughly?
I believe that's the number. As I go through and we're able to assess that, and I've got some folks in my department that are working to try to round that up. It's an interesting thing. I was up in Magalia just a little while ago, and talking to one of our deputies, and I hadn't heard that he had lost his home, and I had learned it when we were up there.
So it's very fluid.
It is.
We'd also heard that all of the Paradise police officers lost their homes. Do you know anything about that?
So obviously I don't want to comment on the Paradise Police Department, but I do know that a substantial number of them have lost their homes.
Would that include their civilian employees as well?
I believe, yes. I believe that many of their employees, and many of their employees live in the community, and that community has just been, devastated. And so, the entire town has got to be supported, along with the other communities. Don't get me wrong, because I want to make sure that people also understand, the other communities have been affected like this, and Concow has to be supported as well as the other communities. So we're gonna push through all of that. Okay.
And earlier we were talking about the search for remains. Two things are affecting it. One, there's so much destruction and debris, it's difficult to sift through all that. And two, in some cases the fire burns so intensely that there may be no remains left.
Yeah, and I would add a third to that, which is, not only do you have the magnitude and the the intensity of the fire, which hampers it, but also even if we're still in areas, there's still areas that we can't safely get to because of the fire, or because of downed lines, downed tree lines. It's not safe to get in there.
Last question. I asked you, I'll ask again.
Yeah.
Any idea of when there might be some official identifications of the people who died?
I'm not going to put a time frame on that either, because it's a difficult process. Given what we're dealing with here, it's much more difficult than not in terms of the magnitude, but also in terms of the conditions of the remains.
Thank you.
In the cases in which somebody is reported missing and there's an actual address given and remains were found there,
Okay.
are you notifying that person, the people who reported that person missing, that remains were in fact found?
So we're working through that process. Again, you understand we received just a massive amount of calls, and we're trying to work through that whole process. And I had some conversations with our folks today about how we might improve that process. I will tell you that there needs to be some additional information before we ultimately determine or make an identification. It is certainly circumstantial evidence that if you're at a location and you find the remains, the circumstantial evidence to support the assertion that the person who lived there. But as you know, this was chaos, and it's certainly possible that somebody else was in the house, or we don't know if they had a visitor, or there's all kinds of circumstances, and that's why we would first like to utilize other means of identification, like fingerprints, dental records, DNA. But if none of that is available, we'll then have to use the circumstantial evidence to make those identifications. Okay? Sir? Oh, wait. You already asked questions.
I already went.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm Martha from Associated Press.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just arriving.
Oh, you're just arriving. Okay.
I'm curious how your own home and your own family are doing.
Thank you. That's very, very kind of you. And I'm blessed. My home is fine. In the first night, we were on the edge of one of the mandatory evacuation, but it's there, and my family's fine. And thank God. I mean, that's the thing. And I actually feel guilty a little bit for that. When I talk to, I talk to my deputies, and I talk to, the chief of police of Paradise and police officers, and I go through. I'm relieved that for now we're safe, but I feel a little guilty.
Sheriff, when you are trying to rescue missing people or just look after missing people, is there any way to prioritize like the elderly or disabled?
Well, we certainly do, but a lot of that is driven by how much information we have, and if we've got good information that leads us to be able to resolve that. I mean, those are the case. If we have have some information to believe that someone's in danger, obviously we're going to go to that. This is just, and I think you guys have all been up in the area, right? You know what it looks like, and if you can help all of our community and your viewers and readers understand the magnitude of this situation, makes this a very difficult proposition. The fact of the matter is, we're in uncharted territory in terms of how to ultimately deal with this. We have plans, we have experience, we've been through, our county's been through things, the spillway. But in terms of magnitude, we're in uncharted territory.
And then last of my questions, is there any message you want to send to the people who are worried about missing family members? Or?
Yeah, I'm worried too, and we're committed to this. And I had a gentleman last night, actually at the community meeting, as I understand, he came up to me and he showed me a picture of his grandparents, and he said that he reported him missing and wanted some information. And he said, I want this to be personal for you. And I said, it is, but they're all personal for me. This is my community. These are people who I, serve, and so it's all personal to me. And with that in mind, it is personal. It's personal to me. It's personal to my staff. The detectives that are working on these cases, they are committed to this. They want to resolve these cases. It's just a matter of the magnitude and how we're doing. And as I understand, and maybe, I don't know if you have a report on it, but as I understand, the individual ultimately did locate his grandparents, and that's been resolved, so that's a fantastic thing. Okay? Sound good?
Sheriff, what is the status of Sterling City?
I'll get an official status on that when we have our 18-hour briefing. I did make it all the way to Sterling City because I needed to turn around to come down here to get with you guys because I wanted to get information out. Okay?
And sorry, one other question there. Did you hear anything about, any sort of downed power lines sorry, I lost the tweet there. Oh, any transmission lines downed in Feather River Canyon last night?
I have not received information. Yeah,
okay.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have any idea of Polka?
I haven't made it up there yet either, and so but will you be at the 6 p.m.? Let's talk about that. Let's I can have somebody who maybe has a better idea talk about that.
Okay.
Fair enough?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, guys, thank you all so much. I really appreciate it. Thanks for coming down. Thanks for your assistance in helping us get information out.
Of course. Thank you, Sheriff, for your time. I really appreciate it.
You bet.
And can I have your first and last name?
Yes, first name is Kory, Kory.